University Board of Education meeting. It gives me great pleasure tonight to introduce two young people from the Black Fox Elementary School, 4th grade, Miss May Eubanks and Mr. Braxton Robinson. They will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll stand for a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. And thank you so much, Ms. Eubank and Mr. Robinson. At this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Sharon Hawks, and she will let us know a little bit about the Emancipation Proclamation.
Teach 4th grade at Black Fox Elementary, and back in December we were told that the Black Fox Elementary School students in 4th grade won the lottery, and they got really excited when I told them that they were lottery winners. And then we had to explain that it wasn't money that they had won, but it was the lottery chance to actually go and view the Emancipation Proclamation that was going to be on exhibit at the Tennessee State Museum in Nashville. We did a lot of preparation in our class prior to our field trip that we took on February the 13th in telling them about the importance of the document and how it tied into our history. So we spent a very eventful morning trying to arrive in downtown Nashville by 8:45 to be able to be ready to view the document at 9 o'clock. As I was sharing with Dr. Gilbert, I told Mr. Wayne, our bus driver, that we were told he was the best and we needed to be there by 8:45, and he said he would do his best. We got caught in traffic, pouring down rain, and it was obvious we weren't going to make it. So as I told Dr. Gilbert, I pulled out my phone. I called the museum. I told them, I said, we're making, every effort possible to arrive on time. Could you work us in later? Which they had already said, if you're late, you miss your opportunity. So fortunately, they were very understanding considering the circumstances of traffic and the weather, and were able to work us in. As soon as we got there, the children got to view the document. They knew a lot about it prior to viewing it. After the viewing, then they were able to spend probably a couple of hours in the actual museum viewing all of the Civil War history displays that they had. They were incredibly inquisitive. Some of the most well-mannered children that we witnessed that day at the museum. You would have been very proud of their conduct on the way there as well as at the museum and on the way back. And we had an incredible opportunity, and we'd like to thank you all for taking the time to approve that field trip for us to go to be able to witness something that was such a vital part of our history, and for hopefully the children it'll be lifelong memories that they'll take with them from that day. All right, May, you want to come and tell them a little bit about what you experienced?
I really enjoyed the museum field trip. I think it really taught students about history. I think that the students really enjoyed seeing President Lincoln's signature on the 3rd page of the Emancipation Proclamation document. Thank you for allowing us to go on the field trip.
I really enjoyed the museum field trip. I think that the field trip taught students more about the Emancipation Proclamation document. It also taught us about the Civil War and how things have changed. Thank you for allowing us to go on the field trip.
Wonderfully done. Thank you. Right now, we'll ask for the approval of the agenda. Ms. Rainier.
I think that we need to move under reports and information, the update, tab A, update of city school site under an action item, and then move A under action items, the approval of board policies, to B. I understand we have information about the city school site and we need to act on it this evening.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rainier. The motion is that we're going to move reports A2 under action items. Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
There's a motion second. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Are there any that oppose? Thank you. Good evening to you, Dr. Gilbert.
Good evening.
Communications.
Yes, before I start communications, I do want to thank Ms. Hawks and the other teachers at Black Fox for taking a chance and entering the lottery. Mr. Thompson, you were talking about, Sharon, you were talking about your nervousness that day. Mr. Thompson was in a principal's meeting, and he came over, and he said, they're on their way. And then a few minutes later, he came over and said, oh, they made it. So he was very excited that you made it. So I certainly appreciate his support of that. And thank you so much for your report tonight, May, and also Braxton. I'd like to announce our system and our school teachers of the year. As you know, the teachers are the defining element in the classroom, and we would not have the success we have as a school district if it were not for those teachers of the year. So I would like to read their names, and we will be having a recognition celebration for them on Tuesday, March the 19th from 4:30 until 6 at Oakland's Mansion, and certainly would like for you to attend. But the teachers of the year from Bellwood, Beth Blasingame, Black Fox, Kenesha Harper and Andrew McKnight, Bradley, Holly Campbell and Mary Allison, Kason Lane, Nicole Taylor and Natalie Hopkins, Discovery School, Karen Cook and Sarah Rosenbarger Swarter, Irma Siegel, Jim Bjork and Emily Clark, Hobgood, Meredith Gilliland and Laura Smith, John Pittard, Rebecca Few and Jennifer Hall, Mitchell Nelson, Donna Hill and Linda Gerald, Northfield, Sarah Irwin and Jeffrey Baker, and Scales, Tiffany Strevel and Noel Coney. And for the 12-13 District Teachers of the Year, we have Sarah Rosenberger Swarter, who is from Discovery School, and Jim Bjork from Irma Siegel. So we certainly thank those teachers for their work, as we thank all teachers in the district. At this time, I would like for Lisa Trail to come forward, please, and give an update on the Excellence in Education celebration.
I am always thrilled to come before you to talk about the City Schools Foundation and all of the wonderful things they are doing for Murfreesboro City Schools students and our teachers and staff. We just completed our Excellence in Education celebration. We are estimating that we're going to make about $60,000 in that event. So all of that money will go back to our school teachers, to our students, and to many projects as we go throughout the next year. This year, we gave $45,000 in teacher grants, and those are not necessarily just to individual teachers, but they're also school system grants as well. Several teachers came together to ask for a larger sum of money for larger group projects. So those $45,000 in those teacher grants, and we also just gave $30,000 in parity grants. And those parity grants go to our schools who have a little bit more difficulty in raising money through like parent-teacher organizations. So those parity grants are used at the discretion of the principals, and I would say the principals would agree they come in very, very handy. So we have a fabulous group of trustees that's really working hard to raise money to help fund some of these projects at Murfreesboro City Schools. Doug Young is our chair this year and has done a fabulous job. Minerva Smith who is a retired Murfreesboro City School teacher, served as the chairperson for the Excellence in Education event and did a fabulous job. We have a great committee, a great group of trustees, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer any, but we appreciate your support of the City Schools Foundation.
Ms. Smith.
You forgot someone who played a very significant role in this year's event, and that would be Lisa Trail. And thank you very much for your hard work. She and Minerva Smith were quite a team, and I really appreciate your input.
Read Across America will be Friday, March the 1st, and we welcome you into our schools to read, and we will have several guests, I'm sure, throughout the day at the different schools. And then on Saturday at 6:30, March the 2nd, several of the schools are coming together for a festival choir. This is the first time that we've had this in Murfreesboro City. We're very excited about it. I was at Bradley today and listening to the students rehearse, so I think it's going to be quite an event. It will be held at Irma Siegel, and again, that will be March the 2nd at 6:30. And then the City Art Show, the City Hall Art Show, will be from March the 19th through May the 3rd, and we will have, in the City Hall Rotunda, we will have our students' art on display. We would like to congratulate Luke Hill, who's the music teacher at Bradley and also at Scales. He recently was published in the Tennessee Musician winter issue and also in the Kansas Music Review. Art has been very involved with arts integration at Bradley, of course, and in the classrooms, and that is what the research was on, and it's impressive research, so congratulations to him. And also, we would like to congratulate Mitchell Nelson art teacher, Sayward Ratliff, who won a 4-day residency grant from the Tennessee Arts Commission, and as a result of that, a Chattanooga artist whose name is Lolly Durant will be at Mitchell Nelson in April, and she will actually be demonstrating art. She is a folk artist and also a potter, and so she will bring her knowledge to our students at Mitchell Nelson. And then Hobgood Elementary has received a grant from the Boston Science Museum. They will be sending a teacher for training this summer on the Engineering as Elementary curriculum. This is a curriculum that we will be piloting at Hobgood. As you know, Hobgood is a NASA Explorer school, and so they also will be piloting rocketry. But the Engineering as Elementary certainly goes along right along with Common Core, and I think will be quite impressive. So we'll be interested to see how that goes. We would like to thank Mount Zion Baptist Church, their interim pastor, and Mrs. Jerry Marable for their $200 donation to the backpack program. And then Sandy Shealy has announced that 3 of our schools received 100% on their cafeteria health inspections, and those schools are Bellwood, Black Fox, and Hobgood, and the district-wide average health inspection score was 99. Now, let me tell you, folks, those health inspection scores are tough to get. So really want to congratulate our food service folks and also our principals and certainly Sandy for their work with that health inspection. That is just remarkable. And then we also have congratulations to Christy Mall, who is a teacher at Discovery. She has been selected as the Tennessee liaison for the organization that has the title of Social and Emotional Needs of the Gifted. This is an international organization that focuses on the needs of the gifted, and as a matter of fact, Christy is she's working on her doctorate degree in that, so we congratulate her for that. And then finally, on your communications, I'd like to introduce a new person. So Leah, if you would come to the microphone, please. This is Leah Barch. Leah Barch is the new assistant principal at Discovery School, and she's also the gifted coordinator. So I wanted you to see her face. She has already been working in our schools with several of the teachers, and I've gotten some very positive feedback from those teachers from the work that she's doing. So she will be, in addition to her assistant principal role, she will be consulting with our teachers who have gifted students, and also will be working, we've already talked to Vanderbilt. We had some training from Vanderbilt, and she'll be following up on that training and really looking at our gifted program and how we can more effectively reach those students. So we welcome you, Leah.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it, and I've had a very warm welcome so far.
Thank you, Leah. And those are your communication items.
Thank you. On the consent items, is there approval for the approval of our consent items?
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Anderson, and action items.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. We have action item for you tonight that originally was an update and a report about the new property that we're looking at for the new elementary school. As you know, 4 years ago, we put on the plan for the capital improvement plan for the city to build a new school, and we are very pleased that we're right on target now to have that come about and happen for us this year. What we have for you tonight is for consideration of looking at the site that the city has been extremely helpful in helping us go through. We've been through many sites. We vetted 9 different sites and then actually added 2 additional ones that we looked at. And we have landed on this one particular site that the city has been very heavily negotiating with, and we're going to be asking the board tonight to make a motion to approve the property as presented to you, and then ask the city to continue their negotiations. We sent to you earlier a list of items that are deal points about the what's called the Swanson School site deal points. We emailed that to you and gave you a hard copy at your place. We also gave you the proposed school site. It is located south of Highway 96 and east of Veterans Parkway. And you can see, if you go to the third page of the materials we handed you, you can see where that particular site is. If you look at the topographic chart that you have there, you can see that where the school is going to be located, we have a creek on one side, and then we have a mountain on the other side. So this is going to be one of the most beautifully placed schools that we'll have in the district, but just the topographic area where it is. The site is located here north and west of Cason Lane and Scales. As you know, that's our major growth area in the city right now, is that area. And I brought a map with us tonight to show you where this site is going to be, and I'll get to that in just a minute. And on the next page is the West Elementary School proposed design, and we're calling it West Elementary School just because it's on the west side of town. That's not obviously the name of the school. This is the timeline. We've already gone through the first 4 items on the timeline, and we're to the site selection piece, and that's what we're going to be asking you to look at tonight. The next page of the handout is the actual picture or artist rendition of what the school will look like from the front of the school building. And then the next 2 pages that we've given you are the floor plans. Of course, we have much larger pictures. We just want to give you that as a reference point. Mr. Lyons is here tonight to review for you where the city is on this right now. So if I could, I'd like to ask Mr. Lyons to come up and discuss the deal points. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Good evening. I apologize for my delay in getting here. I was emailing the council about this project. So I want to, first of all, thank you for what you do for our community. It's outstanding and wonderful, and there's been a lot of hard work that's led up to the point of where we're at this evening, and certainly want to compliment Dr. Gilbert on her vision and working with you on finding a new site for an elementary school in Murfreesboro. The process really started with us identifying probably about 9 sites that could potentially serve our community. Obviously, we've got to look at issues about the other school zones, infrastructure, roads, where the overcrowding was in the existing school facilities. So we use that information, their expertise on the education end, and also to talk to our city staff, our traffic department, our engineering department, our planning department, to try to identify where would be a good location for sites. Over the last several weeks, probably going on a month or 2, we've had contact with a number of property owners, and we're proud to present to you what we believe is the best deal for the city and the city school system. You've gotten a letter there that includes the deal points, and essentially what it involves is the property owner, Mr. Swanson, would donate a 25-acre site to the city for the school site. He would also donate the land for the rights-of-way and the easements that are needed for the utilities, and that would all be at no cost to the city. The city's role in this then would be to fund the infrastructure needed to serve that site. We would build 2 streets. On your exhibit, it shows Street A and Street B. This is necessary to get access to the school. We would also, as part of that project, include the associated utilities, just like we always would. Now, the benefit to Mr. Swanson in that situation is he'll have undeveloped land that can be served by this infrastructure. So we really do believe this is a good win-win for both the city and the property owner. We'd get the land at no cost. We'd build the infrastructure that would benefit him. So we really do look at this as a collaborative effort, and I'd be glad to answer questions at this point.
Board members, are there any questions? Mr. Campbell.
Rob, to the east, to the right of this building, that a creek that runs along the east side, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Will our property line go all the way to that creek?
We'll need to do a survey for actually what would get donated. Typically, you're going to do it to the center line of the creek, is how we typically see those deeds drawn up.
Where is the bridge to be built?
Well, that's something that we think can be a long-term benefit for both the development and the school site. However, we do not need the bridge to connect to the east to the Kingdom Ridge subdivision. It's not something we have to have. However, we think it would be something that would be nice to have. So as we began to take a look at the cost components, what we've talked to Mr. Swanson about is we would certainly encourage him to consider connecting what's called Street A, to continue it eastward to connect to Kingdom Ridge, and I think he was open-minded to that. He did not commit to build that bridge, but I think he sees the ability to connect that neighborhood to Veterans Parkway, and as you know, Veterans Parkway to the north gets you to 840, and to the south can get you over toward I-24. So,
what did you call that subdivision?
I believe it's Kingdom Ridge.
All right, where is that? The streets over here to the right, Conquer and Arc Lane, and
that
is that part of that subdivision?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, right here.
So there could possibly be a bridge from that area into the school. Would that then make another entrance or exit?
It would help. It could better help distribute the traffic, and Mr. Swanson certainly saw the benefit in that. He's not in a position to commit to do that now, but if we can identify that and say that would be something that we would all like to see, and he can plan ahead for that, then we think we can lay the groundwork for that future connection to happen. What we would hate to see happen is we don't discuss it, we don't surface it as a potential, and then the normal course of development and laying out a subdivision, all of a sudden a decision gets made that precludes the ability to make that connection. So we're trying to do some long-range planning and make that connection. I will say there's one of the other deal points here, I believe it is number 8 on the buyer section. Mr. Swanson had asked, would the city object to Mr. Swanson building a pedestrian bridge from the Kingdom Ridge subdivision across the creek to connect to the back of the school site. And we certainly wouldn't have any objection. That might be a nice way for kids to get to school. It would keep cars off the street. So we certainly wouldn't object to that sort of connection.
Well, all right, so if those students then in that subdivision, unless there is a pedestrian bridge, and that's not going to do it for all of them, then they've got to go how to get to that school? I'm assuming they'd be zoned there for their club because of the closest, but
sure.
Then they're going to have to go all the way back out to...
Yeah. You can see a portion of a road called Covenant Boulevard in the top right-hand corner of your... That's the north-south connector from this subdivision up to Highway 96. If you drive down Highway 96, you've seen kind of some columns. That's the entrance to that neighborhood. So, yes, it is. You're correct, Mr. Campbell, that they'd have to go north on Covenant, turn left on 96, come down Veterans Parkway, and then into the site.
I have a concern that we've only got one entrance and one exit to that property.
Well, and eventually, and that's part of your right now.
I mean, that's just my thinking.
But we also, I think, can recognize that as time goes by, certainly schools become a great magnet for subdivision growth. The expectation would be that that Street B would eventually connect up to Highway 96, or there'd be another connection over to Veterans Parkway. So it will distribute the traffic eventually. What we're showing you here is what the city needs as a minimum to for the school to open.
Have all your questions been answered, Mr. Campbell?
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons, for working so hard on this. I appreciate it. This is what you do every single day. So my question is the cost of the infrastructure that the city will have to pay for consistent with the infrastructure for other properties in the area?
Well, it does depend on the site and the distance. When infrastructure is close by, the extension cost may be less than if you've got to come some distance. There were other sites that were considered, however, to extend the sewer line a greater distance really made the site not as attractive. So we do believe this is in keeping. Mr. Swanson, in donating the site and trying to look at values, he and I had a number of conversations about the value of the land, He provided to us an appraisal that showed the land was valued at $55,000 an acre, which if you extend that over the 25-acre donation would be nearly $1.4 million. Now, we had a lot of discussion about that number, and so I really don't want to say I'm placing value on it. I can say I reviewed an appraisal that showed it at that dollar amount. That's where we got into the mutual benefit, where we would install the infrastructure and not have to pay for the land, and still feel like it was a good deal for both parties.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Lyons or for Ms. Renier?
I may be a little behind on this. Are you saying that you need us to come up with a recommendation as far as another street and the bridge going in here now?
No, ma'am.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Now, one thing we did ask Mr. Swanson to do, and he readily agreed to it, is you'll see in one of the deal points that we've asked him to put a restrictive covenant prohibiting front entry garages. The reason for that being, if it's a front entry garage, it's going to cause that homeowner to have to back out into Street B, which is going to be problematic for the cars queued up for school. And he agreed that they would be side entry garages, which mean they'd be able to leave in a more efficient manner.
Ms. Smith?
What's the value of these homes that are being put in?
I'm not sure I can answer that. He did indicate to me today that he was probably contemplating lots in the 12 to 15,000 square foot range. Certainly the Kingdom Ridge is a very attractive subdivision, and he's
The
a
12
property
to
owner.
15,000 square foot range?
Lot size.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's a giant house, isn't it?
Yeah.
There may be one there that got
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but no of them don't.
Did that answer for you, Ms.?
Yes, thank you.
I've got another question.
Mr. Campbell?
I like the site, don't get me wrong, okay?
Yes, sir.
We go from middle of the creek, then how far west do we go?
I did not bring my scale, but Huddleston Steel developed the exhibit for us, and this would calculate out to be 25 acres.
Ballpark figure.
800. It's about 800 feet on the north. 900 feet? Okay.
900 feet to the north? Yes. And then what about back toward the Veterans Parkway?
I think Street B is 2,100 feet is the length of Street B.
I'm going from Street B back toward Veterans Parkway.
Okay. Well, it looks like Street A is 600 feet, but that Veterans Parkway then begins to move away from the school site. So on the north, it is probably 1,000 to 1,200 feet.
I'm still lost. If I look at Street B and I go to the left of that toward Veterans Parkway, I would assume that our property line will not stop at the edge. If this is, will not stop at the west edge of Street B. Will all this property from Street B like down to where Street A runs into Veterans Parkway, is all of that up in there, is that our property? Will that be the city property?
Yeah, let's see if this will help, Mr. Campbell. That would be the property line to the south. Over to
Okay.
Street B, north, and then over to the center of the creek.
Okay, so we don't have anything west of Street B much?
No, sir.
Is all that suitable for housing development?
That's, I think the preliminary indication from Mr. Swanson is he would be looking at 12 to 15,000 square foot lots along Street B.
Okay.
Ms. Smith?
Right now, this property is outside of the city proper, is that correct?
No, it's inside the city
It's
limits.
in,
Yes.
all of this, so all these subdivisions are inside the city.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent.
Now, this will require BZA special use permit. That's a standard procedure that all school sites go through, so that would be the next stop along the way. While Mr. Johnson's coordinating some of the site analysis work, the geotechnical analysis and so forth, we'll be going through the BZA process.
We don't have anything from there. Okay.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Lyons or comments? Mr. Barry?
First, I want to just thank the city for bringing all the departments together to help us find this site. And how much prep is it going to be for, is there going to be much leveling at this site? You know, where we do have a lot of rock, but is there going to be a lot of leveling involved? Or?
I defer to Mr. Johnson's look.
Well, certainly they'll annex that if it's right here.
We're not really certain how much rock there is there because we have not performed the geotechnical investigation. But of the sites that we looked at, this is one of the better sites in terms of the amount of earth that has to be moved to get a pad for a building.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, if there are no more questions, we'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion we approve.
Second.
All right. What they're asking us to do is to approve the school site as presented and ask the city to finalize the securing of the property for construction. Is there a second?
Second.
All in.
That's
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
That's all right. That's okay.
Third.
That's okay. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't hurt my feelings a bit.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lyons.
I hope to take this to the mayor and council. They certainly are the ones who have final say on this, and we would hope to take this to them on Thursday evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Wade, before you continue, I do want to recognize Mr. Lyons. He has spent endless hours, and stays up pretty late at night, too, I can attest to that, and gets up pretty early in the morning because we've certainly communicated at those times. But I really appreciate his leadership in this and bringing the departments together, engineering, and all the other folks, and I'm not about to try to name them, Rob, but I can't thank you enough. And for the council members who are here, I thank you very much for your support and continue to look forward to working with you. I also want to thank Mr. Johnson and Mr. Lynch for being here tonight. But, Rob, your leadership's been amazing with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Righty. Board policies, Ms. Baker.
Okay, the first policy that you have before you tonight for first reading is Board Policy PER 46 on employee use of social electronic media. This policy deals with the employees' use of electronic media to communicate with students, and as far as giving them some guidelines on use of the media so that it doesn't interfere with their position with the school system. The policy in lines 6 through 10 define electronic media to include all forms of social media such as texting, instant messaging, electronic mail, weblogs, blogs, electronic forums, video sharing, etc. The policy reminds school employees that they are role models for the students and they're responsible for their public conduct and when they are not acting as district employees, and that they will be held to the same professional standards in their public use of electronic media as they are for any other public conduct. And this also reminds employees that if the employee's use of electronic media interferes with the employee's ability to effectively perform their job, they would be subject to disciplinary action in the same manner that they would be subject to disciplinary action if other conduct outside the workplace interferes with their ability to perform their job. Now, it does state, starting in lines 23, that when an employee is using electronic media for personal purposes, that they should not utilize any system equipment for making personal use of electronic media, that the employee should not use the district's logo or other copyrighted material on their personal use of electronic media, and that they should comply with all federal, state laws and board policies in their personal use of electronic media. For example, making sure they continue to comply with the federal laws regarding confidentiality of student records, confidentiality of health and personnel information, and confidentiality of district records such as educator evaluations. And it also reminds employees that they need to be sure to comply with copyright laws. The section that starting on line 42 deals with use of electronic media with students. It does state that the need for an employee to use electronic media to communicate with elementary students instead of the parents would require approval from the director of schools and the parent or guardian of the student, and that a faculty member may communicate via electronic media with students if they have this approval. And the school principal or the principal's designee would need to be included in the communication, either by copying them or what other methods are available in that form of electronic media. So that, and then the last part has some definitions of what electronic media would encompass and the definition of communication.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Are there any questions for Ms. Baker before we take a vote? Wonderful. Then we will entertain a motion for the approval of PER 46.
I move we accept this policy.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Are there any that oppose? Thank you.
I think we need to compliment Ms. Baker. This policy has probably taken longer to get approved and written the way we wanted it, the way we thought that it should be written, and she has certainly spent, I'm sure, a lot of time, maybe as much time as Mr. Lyons spent on approving, finding property for approving. But I know it's been a long, hard task, and thank you, Kelly, for all of your work.
Thank you. The next policy that you have before you is Board Policy PER 18 regarding professional learning. This policy is a complete rewrite of the prior policy. The rewriting of this policy was done by the instructional staff, and it deals with some of the requirements that relative to employees and the professional learning that they must obtain. Dr. Gilbert, did you have anything to add on this?
No, I think it's pretty well spelled out. It really just has to do with opportunities and professional learning opportunities for staff. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Is there a motion for the approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next policy you have before you is Board Policy PER 3 regarding teacher effective data. This policy is also a complete rewrite. It is based on the state statute that deals with teacher effective data. That's Tennessee Code Annotated 49-1-606. It too was revised by the instructional staff, and really this does cover all of the requirements under that state statute when it deals with teacher effective data. There will be some revisions to the draft you have before you relative to changing the words superintendent to director, and also this policy, under the state law, the board has to designate who has authority to review teacher effective data, and that is addressed in lines 20, starting at line 25, who the board designates.
Mrs. Smith.
I think that we caught, we're using the term director of schools rather than superintendent. I know that we caught it on one part. On line 29 and 30, it's still being used.
Yes.
So what does that mean? What's the difference?
That's what I meant. We're going to revise.
So you are going to, okay, even the parts that you'd marked out?
Yes.
Okay, because there are many more. Okay.
Are there any more questions or corrections with this policy? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the last policy brought to you tonight for first reading is Board Policy STU 41 regarding inspection and/or challenge of instructional material. This policy also is a complete rewrite that was prepared by the instructional staff. It sets forth the procedure that must be followed if a teacher or a parent or someone wants to object to any instructional material that is being used by the system, and it sets forth the procedure that would need to be followed in that complaint.
Any questions for Ms. Baker? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Reports and information.
I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Anderson.
The financial report, we're at the 58.3% of the year. We've crossed over the line into the black, which is the cash flow line for us, and we usually do that in January or February, so we feel good about that. So we're at a good place right now in our cash flow. And part of the reason is sales tax collections are up to over $230,000 over last year at this time, and property tax collections are up over $150,000 over last year at this time. So obviously that helps contribute to us crossing over on the cash flow. The expenditure side, we're at 52% of expenditures at 58% of the year, so we're in good shape on revenue and expenditures right now. I'm going to entertain any questions anyone has about it. Okay, the next report is the report on the enrollment. Our enrollment numbers are still 81 over the budgeted enrollment numbers we had. We are 271 students over the first day of school and 232 how we ended last year. So we're in good shape there in our growth. Our pupil-teacher ratio is 18.99 in K through 3 and 20.82 to 1 in 4 through 6 for a district average of 19.65 to 1. Another very good thing is the flu season has just about reached its end, and our attendance was 95.3% again in the month of January. So that was another excellent month of attendance. So if they're in school, that gives them a great chance to learn.
He says it's true. The flu season's over, right?
No, I said we're approaching the end of the flu season. Doctor's not here tonight.
Are there any questions or anything for Mr. Anderson? Well, hearing none, is there any other business that needs to come before this board that we would have on the agenda for our next meeting in March, first Tuesday night? And if you do have anything that you wanted added, if you would send an email to Dr. Gilbert to have it added to our agenda. If nothing else, if Dr. Gilbert has nothing, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.